We are live with a book. And better than the book, the best book that I've ever read, the book that makes me laugh on every page, and I am quite a critical laugher. Uh, Better than the book, we have the writer of the book. We have the infamous, the wonderful, the bold, the unapologetic Elizabeth Eve King.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. It's so nice to be talking to you again here. You also are unapologetic and bold.
Yeah, and I got a little bit more after having coaching with you and after reading this book.
Thanks.
And I think that's what all authors want to hear is like somehow this helped other women be more themselves. Is that a motivation for you as an author and an artist, or is that just a byproduct of being yourself?
Oh, it's a motivation. I think it started more as a byproduct almost, especially when I was teaching, just being me. And seeing how it has affected people. But yeah, definitely it's a byproduct. And I didn't realize this book would be really offensive to a lot of people. Actually, I should have. I mean, I sort of did, but I don't comprehend how offensive it is. I always think I'm just a nice, friendly person who's going
Offending
to
all
insult,
religions.
your most intimate beliefs. Uh,
Yeah.
but I love hearing that. I love hearing that it makes you laugh and it makes you think and it makes you bolder and it makes
Mm.
you question maybe, you know.
Mm.
Uh,
So when I was in Pakistan, I did a TEDx talk in Pakistan, and I did a couple talks or workshops with a guy, Saud, who has something called Hopistan. It's a clever name. And when he talks to small, I'm going to say it, small-minded men from small villages who haven't had the opportunity to expand their village awareness, he says to them, why are you so proud of yourself? Somehow like this energy of like, why are you so friggin' arrogant? Like when you know, like what's happening? And they go, because I am Pakistani. And he's like, uh-huh. Okay, and what? Because I am Muslim. And it's like, okay, that basis to non-religious people is a very, it's like saying, I'm an amazing football player, an amazing human because I support Barca football. Like because you believe in something, it makes you a better human than other people. There's a real dangerous belief system happening when you associate yourself to a tribe, a religion, or a thought process. Have you written this book for those people that one day they hopefully pick it up and hide it in their room that their priest doesn't see them reading it? Or did you write it because this just sounded like it was fun to criticize and analyze all the religions of the world?
oh my goodness, that makes it sound so frivolous. Which it is and it isn't in a way. It started as a short story idea
Okay.
I wrote. And even the short story actually is on Audible as well as
Ooh,
in collections, and they have great narrators, so you can hear it read by
fun.
short story or long book. And then it was well received as a short story. It came out in a book called Stories That Ought to Be Movies, and there was some movie talk and everything. And then we talked about doing it like a South Park, like a cartoon, which would be
Mm,
fun. And then, I thought I'm going to expand it into a book, which involved, of course, a lot of research. Now, I grew up
mm,
in a very non-religious house. I usually
mm.
say my dad's a writer and my mom was a liar, but they were both storytellers. Neither were religious, especially my dad was very not religious. Uh,
Mm,
and so I was an outsider to religion, really. I mean,
mm,
I kind of wanted it as a kid because I think kids want that. But then,
mm.
especially, I always thought it seemed kind of dumb until and then I did this book and looked deeper into it, and I thought, wow, it's sillier than I thought. But I realize that most people don't think it. It's true. I'm a Muslim. It's especially true with men, I think. But then, you get all these Christians, all
Mm,
these, any religion where you believe you have the truth, which
mm.
which is something that most, not all, not Quakers and stuff, but most religions in this book, it always ends with, this is the only true religion of Jesus Christ. you know, because that's what everybody thinks, or Muhammad, or whatever, that they have the truth. And you only have to look at the way the world is to see that, well, truth is very amorphous and complicated.
Now, you are not afraid.
Not yet.
Not afraid. Huh. How did you get this way? Because most women that I talk to and train are even afraid to interrupt in a meeting. We raise our hands as women. We apologize for saying our ideas and frame it as like, I'm not sure. Like, you told the world that their truth isn't the only truth. That's like the level of a political leader. That's like, you should start a sect, honey, a sect of no religion.
A sect, yeah, Christ without God, or whatever.
Because I don't think you realize how powerful it is, because everyone's so sensitive. And now America, I don't have an opinion about America, but people are very sensitive about my truth. And yet anyone who's religious is pretty much saying, your truth is crap, my truth is the only one. So it's almost like they're sensitive to something that they're doing the exact, oh my God, they're hypocrites. Who would have thought religious people could be hypocrites? Huh.
I think that's the tenet. Well, Mark Twain said, and this is Mark Twain, so this is way back when, and it was certainly true then, that if Christ came back to earth, the last thing he'd be was a Christian.
Wow.
I mean, and if you look especially at, America now, the way Christianity is, it's the opposite of everything Christ said. It's certainly not the poor man, it's the richest man in the world. It's not, it was never that egalitarian. Most religions, they suck for women. Women and slaves, they don't do well with religion. I mean, they might believe in it, but it's always that pie in the sky thing.
Literally, how many pies in the sky that regenerate hymens do you get in the Muslim world?
I think 70.
70, and women don't even get up there. That's like one of my favorite lines in there, because they're in general smelly, dirty, complaining hags. What is that essentially?
Complaining hags, and that was a direct quote. I mean, granted, it's translated. I didn't read anything in the original language, so I have to. But I did read. I read a lot of books and religious theology, and even now, sometimes I come across something that I haven't had in the book where I'm like, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, figuratively, not literally. Yeah. I mean, I understand, and a lot of religions come out of either desert places, because you're all alone there thinking there must be more to life than God. There must be something there. Oh my God, am I going to, and then you want the rewards. But then it's also been used. I mean, Christ preached to the poor. He preached to turn the other cheek and love your brother. And I don't believe he was anything supernatural, but he did have some really amazing ideas that were then, I mean, look at the Catholic Church and all the gold domes and all the costumes they wear and where women are. And, they aren't exactly hanging out washing people's feet. They're all asking for alms. Every time you go into the church, they're asking you for money, and they have all these jewels. And that's just, and then all religions mostly just are for the hierarchy, to keep the people in control and to have power. It's a power thing, which is also what it's being used at politically now in America, certainly. Religious place.
We were just at an event, you and I, on Thursday night for women, and it was a Women's International Day celebration. And I can't help but reading through this, I only know 3 religions very well. I've switched about 5 religions in my lifetime, and I've settled on who the hell knows. That's the religion that I follow. And the point that you said is religion isn't made for women. Like, women don't even get instructions on how to pray, because we don't need to pray. We're not going to heaven anyway. It's like we're excluded completely from heaven, and we're just destined for hell, or they didn't even think about us. We didn't even exist. It's like until 100 years ago, women were possessions of males and still are in some countries, just like an animal was. Nobody writes a book about how to get your horse to heaven because it has no value. So women who believe in religion, it just seems contra feminism to believe in a book that tells you that you have zero value and God doesn't give a shit how you pray because you're not going to heaven anyway. So start making the bread, honey. Like if men believe in religion, I kind of get it. But when women have religion, it's like, no, like read it. It doesn't like you.
It doesn't like you. Yeah. There's only one religion that was founded by a woman, Mary Baker Eddy, Seventh-day Adventist. No, sorry, Christian Science. I got that wrong. Christian Science, which is also Mark Twain, neither Christian nor science, he said. But it all comes from reading the book or the book of Christian Science. So you better get a good copy or you might die of typo. Okay. But generally speaking, yeah, no, women are always there a second thought, or men get the glow. In the Mormon religion, men get to progress to be gods and make their own worlds. In fact, God was actually once a man who went through this. And in women, because I once said, first I didn't, before I knew a lot, I was like, oh, cool. I can see, that's kind of cool. You get to make your own world. And the woman I was talking to said, well, not me, my husband. It's like, what do you get? A refrigerator that never needs defrosting. I mean,
we should be happy with that.
Yeah, it is very much that. And religion was used in America to keep slaves in place. The curse of Cain or Abel. Some of them, people get me. They'll be like, no, it was Cain. The curse of Cain. The curse of darkness.
Well, the wisest. So I grew up as a Christian only because there was only one Christian school in town, and my parents wanted me to have a non-public school education as good Germans who didn't want their kid to be a Canadian. So they put me in the Christian school, and I became super Christian. I became a missionary, virgin till 25, hard to believe. And I really believed it. I wrote an essay about why the Bible is correct. And then I met an Egyptian man, a Muslim man, a very good Egyptian man. And then I moved to Egypt, and then I read the Quran. And then I wrote an essay about why the Bible is wrong. So one person, one experience completely opened my mind to the opposite almost. And so it's very interesting. The very religious people, who are they not talking to? What are they not reading to think that out of 100 religions in the world, theirs is right and everyone else is going to hell? For me, it's not logical, it's not scientific, it's not intelligent, and yet very intelligent, logical people are doing this, which makes me think that it's just fear. We don't understand it, and this book tells me that I'll be okay for eternity. I'm going to believe this because the opposite is nothing. So is fear the main cause of almost all shit out there, and religion being one of them?
I think fear and then control, because the guys, and it is guys in the hierarchy of religion, get to control everybody else, and they get, wealth, even if they're preaching that poverty is the way into heaven. They get women, even if they're teaching that chastity is the way to go. It's all, I don't ever quite, like, I always wonder, somebody like the Pope, Christ preached poverty. That's what he preaches, go be fishers of men, give up all your possessions. So how do they reconcile the reality of their life with all this wealth and luxury? And I don't know that but it's a contradiction. It's like a huge contradiction that nobody wants to mention. And you always get people like begging in front of the church, too. And it's like the church is here with all this huge money, and the church itself has got all these little things you can give it money. And I was always like, well, if I was going to give you money, it wouldn't be in front of a church. Sorry.
Pull off a diamond.
Yeah, just pull up right. It's like, I've always like, oh, could we do that? So it's like, are these gyms real? They are. Um,
Right.
and, and it goes way back, of course. Middle Ages, you would pay penance, right, to get in. God, now I'm blanking on the term. You'd pay to get into heaven.
Oh yeah.
What do they call it? Oh, shoot. I want to say penance. It's not.
I don't know.
It was a word you would use. So you would, but basically it was a payment. The more you paid to the church, the faster you'd get, the less time in purgatory and the faster into heaven. But that's kind of true in almost all religions are meant to exclude the other.
Hmm.
They're meant to even the newer religions mostly too. It's like, if you aren't of this, you are damned and going to hell. So there's also that people always like to, it's like the bullies in school, right? It makes you more special if the other people are going to hell. If everybody's going to heaven, what's the big deal? But I think it does start out of a fear of death.
Yeah.
Probably, and nothingness. Though there's interesting science about how that may not be quite true.
That's interesting how it has stayed so popular. It has decreased in popularity in some parts of the world and increased in other parts of the world. But in general, the more developed countries are the least religious countries, and that goes hand in hand often. And the ones that don't have, as I don't even know what I'm going to say right now, but there is a relation with more education, less religion, thus less fear about death once you understand maybe quantum physics, or you understand that heaven and hell actually aren't places, and there's not a bearded man who's going to punish you for coveting your neighbor's wife. So higher education, and yet there's still those people that hold on to it. So I think those don't hold on to it for fear; those hold on to it for power. And maybe the less educated people hold on to it because of fear. There might be that dichotomy. I don't know if that's the right word, dichotomy, but
there might be, though I still think, and then of course I do think it has to do how you are brought up. I don't know. Certainly, I mean, if I had been brought up in a religious household, at the very least, I wouldn't have had, like with here, I came sort of like from a place of looking at everything as an outsider. When I look at religion, I'm looking as an outsider. And that, I think, is, whereas, and I admire you for becoming religious and then switching to another religion and trying, you've had at least 3 that you've gotten pretty deeply into, correct? And it's that pursuit of the truth of whatever it is. And then also coming to the fact that, wait, this doesn't seem like the truth. This is, I mean, I think that's tremendously brave.
Thank you.
I thought I might. I mean, I looked into religion when I was a kid, and my parents were like, "Sure, if you want to, go ahead." And I was like, "It's stupid." They're like, "That's what we told you."
It's really about, well, that's one of the things in the Bible. I did read the Bible and I did read the Quran, and I read all the books from Allan Kardec, who does the Spiritism in Brazil. So those are the 3 ones I really investigated. The Judaism, I wasn't going to get into that one. And Buddhism, the book is too thick. Essentially, it says meditate and expect less. That's pretty much Buddhism to me, which I appreciate, but it sounds like hard work. It's easier to say there's only one God, and it's easier to say Jesus was the son of. Then you go to heaven. The other religions, some of them you have to actually do a lot of hard work and meditate and actually work on your inner self. Woo! Forget those religions, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I always think of Buddhism more of a philosophy than a religion. So I do have it in here, but it's really just like a footnote, because it's not the same kind of we're the way and this is it. In a way, Jews, it's interesting because I couldn't really, and I've looked, there's not a clear notion of whether there's a heaven or not, which is like,
really?
Well, why do it if there's no heaven? Why do all this stuff if there's no heaven? Well, to live a good life. And it's like, well, I could live a better life without it.
The good die young. Living a good life is so not as fun as living a little bit on the edge, but it's the fear of going to hell for eternity that kept me it was completely fear-based. I didn't have sex until I was 25. And I started wanting to when I was 14, like, my goodness. And for all those years, 11 years, just denying any kind of thoughts about that, because I was told every thought is a sin, or every sinful thought is a sin. You can't even think about sex without being a sin and going to hell. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to die for being a woman. It's like we have all these women fighters. And America, there's a lot of women who a lot of African American women who are quite religious. And when they come to the events that I go to about women speaking up, they throw God into the topic, and they're very grateful to God. And there's a lot of religion in that community. And I always think, like, how? Like, that book is against you. It's like voting for the yellow guy when you're a Black woman, or even a woman, or a Canadian with dual citizenship. It's like, read the book. If it's against you, don't vote for it. It's like the Spanish people, they're against a country full of Jewish people, and they're very angry at them. But the Muslims would kill them for being gay. It's like, it's very confusing why we believe this thing. So it must be fear. So if I think we need to face fear and go, I can't rely on a book anymore. I can't rely on what my grandmother told me. I can't rely on what society told me. I must grow and evolve into a more conscious person, that maybe there is nothing more, or maybe there is more, but I need to do some internal work, because you can't rely on a book that was written 2,000 years ago by 20 guys, 200 years, 400 years after Jesus died. You can't, and call yourself intelligent. And I said it, and now I'm scared that, like, all my Muslim friends are going to be like, oh, you infidel. But come on.
But that's just so, I mean, you said it, and it's like, it's hard. It's like, well, how could you argue with that? It's like, why are you believing this book that was written so many years ago by people who lived, nomadic people in the desert, who didn't know anything except, I mean, you know, I mean, I find that, I mean, to me, I like science a lot. So I like, well, quantum physics, but also I like biology, because it's fascinating, and it shows you the world isn't this simple thing. I mean, even something we take for granted, right? Like a caterpillar eats a plant and then turns into a butterfly. But what actually happens when they do that, they make this chrysalis. Inside that chrysalis, they completely liquefy. The entire body liquefies, reforms into a butterfly, and some of the pigment even drips out. It's very cool. But then it's like, well, so is that just a caterpillar in a party dress? Is it a new being? What is it? Does it remember before it liquefied? And the answer is yes, it does, because they've done tests with caterpillars to see if the butterfly remembers certain stimuli, and it does remember it. So, wow. So that's something that just that makes you think. Plus the way animals navigate across huge distances in ways, like, we always think of ourselves as this, the brilliant creature, you know, above all the other animals. And I think, no. And animals have, like, if they could smell like a dog, or if they could navigate like a bird, they would be the most, you know, amazing. We would all be taking TED Talks from them.
Yeah. Instead, people just smell like dogs. Most of the time.
Right. A lot of them, mostly men.
Hey, wonderful woman. If people want to know more, they can come catch you on the 15th at the Story
Backstory bookstore in Barcelona. I will be reading, and I usually like to read stories, and I usually like to read funny stories, because it's more fun to get laughs. But this time, this book just came out.
Okay.
Last month, Gods and Monsters. It was featured as a Science Fiction Writer Association, which is like almost like a union for writers. And it was one of their featured books.
Yay.
So I felt very, very proud and excited and grateful for that. That's really nice. Thank you, Science Fiction Writers Association. So I'm probably going to be reading from it, which is a little different, because it'll be like a chapter. But it's a weird book. It's not nearly as cogent and planned as Dirk. It's more like I let my mind just you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
go crazy. So
Wonderful.
because there's funny parts and not
Mm,
funny parts and hit a
mm,
lot of history because I always do that.
mm.
And
Well, we are going to finish because I have an interview with a woman as well who is
cool.
talking about getting on stages and getting heard, which we're doing our women's retreat. Elizabeth is one of our key special guests with Luisa Montalvo, me, and whoever else is coming. And we're going to either you write a book or you get on stage or you have a YouTube channel. But I think us women need to get our ideas heard more now than ever if we want the world to go in a happy direction. So thank you for coming.
Definitely. Thank you. And give a little plug for your retreat, when and where and how to find it.
I will do that. Check the comments below and check out howtobeyou.com.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Elizabeth. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.